Hey everyone, I decided to go live and read through the Bhagavad Gita. So it's an old Penguin Classics copy. And I know everybody's heard quotes from the Bhagavad Gita before. And I'm going to kind of just go through the introduction and get some of the points on why it's important. And also get a little bit of notes on the translation. And um, then I don't know how much of it I'll read through in this session because this is not going to be, of course, the audiobook version that I post. This is just me doing something live, just to kind of get a feel for the book, and also because I like being live every now and then. Um, and yeah, so Penguin Classics. Uh, looks like, let's see. This would have been $2 in the U.S. when it was published. I want to see what year this is from. There we are. The most recent date here is 1978, and this translation was first published in 1962. So Juan Mascaro is the translator. It looks like it's the copyright 1962. Um, and made and printed in Great Britain. Except in the United States of America, this book is sold subject to the condition that it shall not be, by way of trade or otherwise, be lent, resold, hired out, or otherwise circulated without the publisher's prior consent in any form of binding or cover. It's got to have the same cover. Okay, cool. So let's look at the introduction. The first translation from Sanskrit into English was a translation of the Bhagavad Gita. It was done by Charles Wilkins in 1785. Later on, when Alexander Hamilton, 1765 to 1824, was returning from India in 1802, I didn't know he was up in India, and was obliged to stay in Paris because of the war, he taught Sanskrit to Friedrich von Schlegel. 1772 to 1829, the great German critic who, with romantic enthusiasm, spread the knowledge of Sanskrit in Germany, and his brother August translated the Bhagavad Gita into Latin. So Alexander Hamilton has a huge amount of impact on the spread of the Bhagavad Gita through the Western world? That's crazy. I'm going to skip back to the first page here. Penguin Classics founder, editor, Betty Radice. The authorship of the Bhagavad Gita is unknown, as it contains no references to Buddhism, and as certain words and expressions are archaic. Some of the greatest scholars have considered it pre-Buddhistic, i.e. about 500 BC. Juan Mascaro was born in Majorca. The beauty of island, then unspoilt, and the strength of the living folk tradition made a deep impression on him as a child. At the age of 13, he copied a book on occultism, but this proved spiritually misleading. However, a reading of the Bhagavad Gita he found highly illuminating, though it was in a poor translation, and this led him to learn the elements of Sanskrit. Later, he went to Cambridge, where he read modern and Oriental languages, Sanskrit, Pali, and English. Pali. It's Pali. What is Pali? Google, tell me. Middle Indo-Aryan liturgical language native to the Indian subcontinent. Widely studied because it is the language of the Buddhist Pali Canon or Tipitaka, as well as the sacred language of Theravada Buddhism. Okay. He lectured in Oxford on the Spanish mystics and then went to Ceylon, where he was vice principal of Parameshvara College at Jaffna, and to the University of Barcelona, where he was professor of English. After the Spanish Civil War, he settled permanently in England. Keep on forgetting that Spain had a civil war. He lived at first on the hills above Tintern Abbey. He translated a section of the Upanishads, a Penguin classic, and began the translation of the Bhagavad Gita. He then returned to Cambridge University, where he has been a supervisor in English and has lectured on literary and spiritual values in the authorized version of the Bible. Authorized version of the Bible. His translation of the Dhammapada from the Pali is now a Penguin classic, and he is at present working on a book of wisdom and faith. In 1951, he married Miss Kathleen Ellis, and they have a son and a daughter. I want to follow up on Juan Mascaro to see what else, what other work that he did, because that's pretty interesting as a background. So let's see. Alexander Hamilton has just introduced the Bhagavad Gita to the Western world. That happened. The study of Sanskrit led to the comparative study of languages. It was found that Sanskrit, Persian, Greek, and Latin, and also the Celtic, Germanic, and Slavonic languages come from a primitive unwritten language called Aryan. From Ireland to India and all over Europe and America, Aryan languages are spoken. For over 3,000 years, there has been an uninterrupted Sanskrit culture in India, if we include the Sanskrit of the Vedas, and Panini pronounced about 300 BC a perfect Sanskrit grammar, the shortest and fullest grammar in the world. Sanskrit literature is a great literature. We have the great songs of the Vedas, the splendor of the Upanishads, the glory of the Bhagavad Gita, the vastness of the Mahabharata, the tenderness and heroism found in the Ramayana, the wisdom of the fables and stories of India, the scientific philosophy of the Sankhya, the psychological philosophy of yoga, the poetical philosophy of Vedanta, the laws of Manu, the grammar of Panini and other scientific writings, the lyric poetry and drama culminating in the great poetry and dramas of Kalidasa. I want to skip back over here for a second. It was found that the study of Sanskrit led to the comparative study of languages. It was found that Sanskrit, Persian, Greek, and Latin, and also the Celtic, Germanic, and Slavonic languages come from a primitive unwritten language called Aryan. Now, this is 1962. And it's about 80 years later. Is that true? Because I've been seeing a whole bunch. I'm wondering if that's why it got popular. Indo-Aryan languages are a branch of Indo-Iranian languages in the Indo-European language family. As of the early 21st century, they have more than 800 million speakers. India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Nepal, Sri Lanka, and Maldives. The Indo-Aryan family as a whole is thought to represent a dialect continuum where languages are often transitional towards neighboring varieties. Languages versus dialects. Inner-outer hypothesis. Core and periphery of Indo-Aryan languages, with outer Indo-Aryan generally including Eastern and Southern Indo-Aryan representing an older stratum of... I'm going to look this up later, but basically, the citation needed by now because it's been so long since that was written that I don't think that that's necessarily... I don't know if that's the most scientific way you could say that. Let's just put it like that. There are, however, two great branches of literature not found in Sanskrit. There is no history and there is no tragedy. There is no Herodotus or Thucydides. There is no Aeschylus or Sophocles or Euripides. Yes, other cultures are different than your culture. All right, let's skip to let's skip to the Bhagavad Gita. I'm tired of hearing people talk about stuff that isn't even their stuff. You don't need to explain how this is different than your religion first. You can just read the damn thing. Aim of this translation is to give, without notes or commentary, the spiritual message of the Bhagavad Gita in pure English. In a few verses of the poem, I have woven more and more words to make clear the meaning or to explain a proper name, as when in 1:8 Karna is described as the enemy of Arjuna, his half-brother. Considering that the letter kills, but the spirit gives life, I have avoided in a few cases the accepted translation of a word. The most conspicuous example is the very first word of the poem Dharma, which I have in this particular case translated by truth. I came to this conclusion after years of thought, and I was very pleased when I read afterwards that Rabindranath Tagore in his Sadhana, chapter 4, says that Dharma is the truth in us. The words of a poem have many waves of suggestion. I take the word Dharma in this case to mean the truth of the universe. I wonder if at some point I should get another translation of this book to compare just how much it changes. Like, I wonder how much people's attitudes about the Bhagavad Gita are being influenced by a very old translation. All right, let's read it. The Bhagavad Gita. 1. Dhritarashtra. On the field of truth, on the battlefield of life, what came to pass, Sanjaya, when my sons and their warriors faced those of my brother Pandu? Sanjaya. When your son Duryodhana saw the armies of the sons of Pandu, he went to his master in the art of war and spoke to him these words. See, master, the vast army of the Pandavas well set in order of battle by the son of Drupada, your own wise pupil. There can we see heroic warriors, powerful archers, as great as Bhima and Arjuna in battle, Yuyudhana and Virata and King Drupada of the great chariot of war, and Drishtaketu of the steadfast banner, and Chekitana, the king of the Chetis. We see the heroic king of Kasi, and Purujit the conqueror, and his brother Kunti Bhoja, and Saibya mighty among men, and victorious Udamanyu, and powerful Uttamajas, and Sabhadra, the son of Arjuna, and the 5 princes of Queen Draupadi. See them all in their chariots of war. But here also the names of our greatest warriors, the leaders of my own army. I will bring them to your memory. There is yourself, my master in war, and also Bhishma. There is Saumadati, king of the Bahikas, and many other heroic warriors ready to give their lives for me, all armed with manifold weapons, and all of them masters of war. We can number our armies led by Bhishma, but innumerable seem their armies led by Bhima. Stand therefore all firm in the line of battle. Let us all defend our leader Bhishma. To encourage Duryodhana, Bhishma, the glorious old warrior of the Kurus, sounded loud his war cry like the roar of a lion, and then blew his far-sounding conch shell. Then the rumbling of war drums, the stirring sound of cymbals and trumpets, and the roaring of conch shells and horns filled the sky with a fearful thunder. A chariot drawn by white horses answered the challenge and blew their divine conch shells. Krishna, the lord of the soul, blew his conch shell Panchajanya. Arjuna, the winner of treasure, sounded forth his own Devadatta. His brother Bhima, of tremendous feats, blew his great conch shell the Paundra. Their eldest brother, King Yudhishthira, sounded his eternal victory, and Nakula Sadeva the sweet-sounding, and the jewel blossom. And the king of Kasi of the powerful bow, and Sikandi of the great war chariot, Drishtadumya, and Virata, and Satyaki the never conquered, and King Drupada and the sons of his daughter Draupadi, and Sabhadra, the heroic son of Arjuna, sounded from all sides their conch shells of war. At that fearful sound, the earth and the heavens trembled, and also trembled the hearts of Duryodhana and his warriors. The flight of arrows was now to begin, and Arjuna, on whose banner was the symbol of an ape, saw Duryodhana and his warriors drawn up in their lines of battle. He therefore took up his bow, and spoke these words to Krishna. Arjuna, drive my chariot, Krishna immortal, and place it between the 2 armies, that I may see those warriors who stand there eager for battle, with whom I must now fight at the beginning of this war, that I may see those who have come here eager and ready to fight, in their desire to do the will of the evil son of Dhritarashtra. Sanjaya. When Krishna heard the words of Arjuna, he drove their glorious chariot and placed it between the 2 armies. And facing Bhishma and Drona and other royal rulers, he said, See, Arjuna, the armies of the Kurus gathered here on this field of battle. Then Arjuna saw in both armies fathers, grandfathers, sons, grandsons, fathers of wives, uncles, masters, brothers, companions, and friends. When Arjuna thus saw his kinsmen face to face in both lines of battle, he was overcome by grief and despair, and thus he spoke with a sinking heart. Arjuna, when I see all my kinsmen, Krishna, who have come here on this field of battle, life goes from my limbs and they sink, my mouth is sere and dry, a trembling overcomes my body, and my hair shudders in horror. My great bow Gandiva falls from my hands, and the skin of my flesh is burning. I am no longer able to stand, because my mind is whirling and wandering. and I see forebodings of evil, Krishna. I cannot foresee any glory if I kill my own kinsmen in the sacrifice of battle. Because I have no wish for victory, Krishna, nor for a kingdom, nor for its pleasures. How can we want a kingdom, Govinda, or its pleasures, or even life, when those for whom we want a kingdom, and its pleasures and the joys of life, are here in this field of battle about to give up their wealth and their life? Brothers, wives, brothers, mothers, brothers, and fathers of wives. These I do not wish to slay, even if I myself am slain, not even for the kingdom of the three worlds, how much less for a kingdom of the earth. If we kill these evil men, evil shall fall upon us. What joy in their death could we have, O Janardana, mover of souls? I cannot therefore kill my own kinsmen, the sons of King Dhritarashtra, the brother of my own father. What happiness could we ever enjoy if we killed our own kinsmen in battle? Even if they, with minds overcome by greed, see no evil in the destruction of a family, see no sin in the treachery of friends, shall we not, who see the evil of destruction, shall we not refrain from this terrible deed? The destruction of a family destroys its rituals of righteousness, and when the righteous rituals are no more, unrighteousness overcomes the whole family. When unrighteous disorder prevails, the women sin and are impure, and women are not pure, Krishna. There is disorder of castes, social confusion. This disorder carries down to hell the family and the destroyers of the family. The spirits of the dead suffer in pain when deprived of the ritual offerings. Those evil deeds of the destroyers of a family which cause this social disorder destroy the righteousness of birth and the ancestral rituals of righteousness. And have we not heard that hell is waiting for those whose familiar rituals of righteousness are no more? O day of darkness, what evil spirit moved our minds when for the sake of an earthly kingdom we came to this field of battle ready to kill our own people? Better for me indeed if the sons of Dhritarashtra, with arms in hand, found me unarmed, unresisting, and killed me in the struggle of war. Sanjaya. Thus spoke Arjuna in the field of battle, and letting fall his bow and arrows, he sank down in his chariot, his soul overcome by despair and grief. Chapter 2. Sanjaya. Then arose the spirit of Krishna and spoke to Arjuna, his friend, who with eyes filled with tears, thus had sunk into despair and grief. Krishna. Whence this life's dejection, Arjuna, in this hour, the hour of trial? Strong men know not despair, Arjuna, for this wins neither heaven nor earth. Fall not into degrading weakness, for this becomes not a man who is a man. Throw off this ignoble discouragement, and arise like a fire that burns all before it. Arjuna. I owe veneration to Bhishma and Drona. Shall I kill with my arrows my grandfather's brother, great Bhishma? Shall my arrows in battle slay Drona, my teacher? Shall I kill my own masters, who, grandfather's brother, great Bhishma? Shall my arrows in battle slay Drona, my teacher? Shall I kill my own masters, who, though greedy of my kingdom, are yet my sacred teachers? I would rather eat in this life the food of a beggar than eat royal food tasting of their blood. And we know not whether their victory or ours be better for us. The sons of my uncle and king, Dhritarashtra, are here before us. After their death, should we wish to live? In the dark night of my soul I feel desolation. In my self-pity I see not the way of righteousness. I am thy disciple, come to thee in supplication. Be a light unto me in the path of my duty. For neither the kingdom of the earth nor the kingdom of the gods in heaven could give me peace from the fire of sorrow which thus burns my life. Sanjaya. When Arjuna, the great warrior, had thus unburdened his heart, I will not fight, Krishna, he said, and then fell silent. Krishna smiled and spoke to Arjuna. Between the two armies, the voice of God spoke these words. Krishna. Thy tears are for those beyond tears, and thy words words of wisdom. The wise grieve not for those who live, and they grieve not for those who die, for life and death shall pass away. Because we all have been for all time, I and thou and those kings of men, and we all shall be for all time, we all forever and ever. As the spirit of our mortal body wanders on in childhood and youth and old age, the spirit wanders on to a new body. Of this the sage has no doubts. From the world of the senses, Arjuna, comes heat and comes cold, and pleasure and pain. They come and they go, they are transient. Arise above them, strong soul. The man whom the man whom these can move, whose soul is one beyond pleasure and pain, is worthy of life and eternity. The unreal never is, the real never is not. This truth indeed has been seen by those who can see the true. Interwoven in his creation, the spirit is beyond destruction. No one can bring to an end the spirit which is everlasting. For beyond time he dwells in these bodies, though these bodies have an end in their time, but he remains immeasurable, immortal. Therefore, great warrior knows the ways of truth. The eternal in man cannot kill, the eternal in man cannot die. He is never born, and he never dies. He is in eternity, he is forevermore, never born and eternal, beyond times gone or to come. He does not die when the body dies. When a man knows him as never born, everlasting, never changing, beyond all destruction, how can that man kill a man or cause another to kill? As a man leaves an old garment and puts on one that is new, the spirit leaves his mortal body and then puts on one that is new. Weapons cannot hurt the spirit, and fire can never burn him. Untouched is he by drenching waters, untouched is he by parching winds. Beyond the power of sword and fire, beyond the power of waters and winds, the spirit is everlasting, omnipresent, never changing, never moving, ever one. Invisible is he to mortal eyes, beyond thought and beyond change. Know that he is, and cease from sorrow. But if he were born again and again, and again and again he were to die, even then, victorious man, cease thou from sorrow. For all things born in truth must die, and out of death in truth comes life. Face to face with what must be, cease thou from sorrow. Invisible before face to face with what must be, cease thou from sorrow. Invisible before birth are all beings, and after death invisible again. They are seen between two unseens. Why in this truth find sorrow? One sees him in a vision of wonder, and another gives us words of his wonder. There is one who hears of his wonder, but he hears and knows him not. The spirit that is in all beings is immortal in them all. For the death of what cannot die, cease thou to sorrow. Think thou also of thy duty, and do not waver. There is no greater good for a warrior than to fight in a righteous war. There is a war that opens the doors of heaven, Arjuna. Happy the warriors whose fate is to fight such a war. But to forego this fight for righteousness is to forego thy duty and honor, is to fall into transgression. Men will tell of thy dishonor both now and in times to come, and to a man who is in honor, dishonor is more than death. The great warriors will say that thou hast run from the battle through fear, and those who thought great things of thee will speak of thee in scorn, and thine enemies will speak of thee in contemptuous words of ill will and derision of thee in scorn, and thine enemies will speak of thee in contemptuous words of ill will and derision, pouring scorn upon thy courage. Can there be for a warrior a more shameful fate? In death thy glory in heaven, in victory thy glory on earth. Arise therefore, Arjuna, with thy soul ready to fight. Prepare for war with peace in thy soul. Be in peace in pleasure and pain, in gain and loss, in victory or in the loss of a battle. In this peace there is no sin. This is the wisdom of Sankhya, the vision of the eternal. Hear now the wisdom of yoga, path of the eternal and freedom from bondage. No step is lost on this path, and no dangers are found, and even a little progress is freedom from fear. The follower of this path has one thought, and this is the end of his determination, but many branched and endless are the thoughts of the man who lacks determination. There are men who have no vision, and yet they speak many words. They follow the letter of the Vedas, and they say, there is nothing but this. Their soul is warped with selfish desires, and their heaven is a selfish desire. They have prayers for pleasures and power, the reward of which is earthly rebirth. Those who love pleasure and power hear and follow their words. They have not the determination ever to be one within the one. The three gunas of nature are the world of the Vedas. Arise beyond the three gunas, Arjuna. Be in truth eternal, beyond earthly opposites, beyond gains and possessions, possess thine own soul. As is the use of a well of water where water everywhere overflows, such is the use of all the Vedas to the seer of the Supreme. Set thy heart upon thy work, but never on its reward. Work not for a reward, but never cease to do thy work. Do thy work in the peace of yoga and, free from selfish desires, be not moved in success or in failure. Yoga is evenness of mind, a peace that is ever the same. Work done for a reward is much lower than work done in the yoga of wisdom. Seek salvation in the wisdom of reason. How poor those who work for a reward. In this wisdom a man goes beyond what is well done and what is not well done. Go thou therefore to wisdom. Yoga is wisdom in work. Seers in union with wisdom forsake the rewards of their work, and free from the bonds of birth, they go to the abode of salvation. When thy mind leaves behind its dark forest of delusion, thou shalt go beyond the scriptures of times past and still to come. When thy mind, that may be wavering in the contradictions of many scriptures, shall rest unshaken in divine contemplation, then the goal of yoga is thine. Arjuna, how is the man of tranquil wisdom who abides in divine contemplation? What are his words? What is his silence? What is his work? Krishna. When a man surrenders all desires that come to the heart and by the grace of God finds the joy of God, then his soul has indeed found peace. He whose mind is untroubled by sorrows, and for pleasures he has no longings beyond passion and fear and anger, he is the sage of unwavering mind. Who everywhere is free from all ties, who neither rejoices nor sorrows if fortune is good or ill, his is a serene wisdom. When in recollection he withdraws all his senses from the attractions of the pleasures of sense, even as a tortoise withdraws all his limbs, then his is a serene wisdom. Pleasures of sense, but not desires, disappear from the austere soul. Even desires disappear when the soul has seen the Supreme. The restless violence of the senses impetuously carries away the mind of even a wise man striving towards perfection. Bringing them all into the harmony of recollection, let him sit in devotion and union, his soul finding rest in me. For when his senses are in harmony, then his is a serene wisdom. When a man dwells on the pleasures of sense, attraction for them arises in him. From attraction arises desire, the lust of possession, and this leads to passion, to anger. From passion comes confusion of mind, then loss of remembrance, then forgetting of duty. From this loss comes the ruin of reason, and the ruin of reason leads man to destruction. Excuse me. But the soul that moves in the world of the senses, and yet keeps the senses in harmony, free from attraction and aversion, finds rest in quietness. In this quietness falls down the burden of all her sorrows, for when the heart has found quietness, wisdom has also found peace. There is no wisdom for a man without harmony, and without harmony there is no contemplation. Without contemplation there cannot be peace, and without peace can there be joy? For when the mind becomes bound to a passion of the wandering senses, this passion carries away man's wisdom, even as the wind drives a vessel on the waves. The man who therefore in recollection withdraws his senses from the pleasures of sense, his is a serene wisdom. In the dark night of all beings awakes to light the tranquil man, but what is day to other beings is night for the sage who sees. Even as all waters flow into the ocean, but the ocean never overflows, even so the sage feels desires, but he is ever one in his infinite peace. For the man who forsakes all desires and abandons all pride of possession and of self reaches the goal of peace supreme. This is the eternal in man, O Arjuna. Reaching him, all delusion is gone. Even in the last hour of his life upon earth, man can reach the nirvana of Brahman. Man can find peace in the peace of his God. Chapter 3. Arjuna. If thy thought is vision is greater than action, why dost thou enjoin upon me the terrible action of war? My mind is in confusion, because in thy words I find contradiction. Tell me in truth, therefore, by what path may I attain the Supreme? Krishna. In this world there are two roads of perfection, as I told thee before, O Prince without sin. Jnana Yoga, the path of wisdom of the Sankhyas, and Karma Yoga, the path of action of the Yogis. Not by refraining from action does man attain freedom from action. Not by mere renunciation does he attain supreme perfection. For not even for a moment can a man be without action. Helplessly are all driven to action by the forces born of nature. He who withdraws himself from actions but ponders on their pleasures in his heart, he is under a delusion and is a false follower of the path. But great is the man who, free from attachments and with a mind ruling its powers in harmony, works on the path of karma yoga, the path of consecrated action. Action is greater than inaction. Perform therefore thy task in life. The life of the body could not be if there were no action. The world is in the bonds of action, unless the action is consecration. Let thy actions then be pure, free from the bonds of desire. Thus spoke the Lord of creation when he made both man and sacrifice. By sacrifice thou shalt multiply and obtain all thy desires. By sacrifice thou shalt honor the gods, and the gods will then love thee. And thus in harmony with them shalt thou attain. The gods will grant to thee the joy of all thy desires. Only a thief would enjoy their gifts and not offer them in sacrifice. Holy men who take as food the remains of sacrifice become free from all their sins, but the unholy who have feasts for themselves eat food that is in truth sin. Food is the life of all beings, and all food comes from rain above. Sacrifice brings the rain from heaven, and sacrifice is sacred action. Sacred action is described in the Vedas, and these come from the eternal, and therefore is the eternal ever present in a sacrifice. Thus was the wheel of the law set in motion, and that man lives indeed in vain who, in a sensible life of pleasures, helps not in its revolutions. But the man who has found the joy of spirit, and in the spirit has satisfaction, who in the spirit has found his peace, that man is beyond the law of action. In all his works he is beyond the help of mortal beings. In liberty from the bonds of attachment do thou work therefore to be done. For the man whose work is pure attains indeed the supreme. King John, then carry on thy task in life. In the actions of the best men, others find their rule of action. The path that a great man follows becomes a guide to the world. I have no work to do in all the worlds, Arjuna, for these are mine. I have nothing to obtain because I have all. And yet I work. If I was not bound to action, never tiring, everlastingly, men that follow many paths would follow my path of inaction. If ever my work had an end, these worlds would end in destruction. Confusion would reign within all. This would be the death of all beings. Even as the unwise work selfishly in the bondage of selfish works, let the wise man work unselfishly for the good of all the world. Let not the wise disturb the mind of the unwise in their selfish work. Let him working with devotion show them the joy of good work. All actions take place in time by the interweaving of the forces of nature, but the man lost in selfish delusion thinks that he himself is the actor. But the man who knows the relation between the forces of nature and actions sees how some forces of nature work upon other forces of nature and becomes not their slave. Those who are under the delusion of the forces of nature bind themselves to the work of these forces. Let not the wise man who sees the all disturb the unwise who sees not the all. Offer to me all thy works and rest thy mind on the supreme. Be free from vain hopes and selfish thoughts, and with inner peace fight thou thy fight. Those who ever follow my doctrine and who have faith and have a good will find through pure their freedom. But those who follow not my doctrine and who have ill will are men blind to all wisdom, confused in mind. They are lost. Even a wise man acts under the impulse of his nature. All beings follow nature. Of what use is restraint? Hate and lust for things of nature have their roots in man's lower nature. Let him not fall under their power. They are the two enemies in his path. And do thy duty, even if it be humble, rather than another's, even if it be great. To die in one's duty is life. To live in another's is death. Arjuna, what power is it, Krishna, that drives man to act sinfully, even unwillingly, as if powerlessly? Krishna, it is greedy desire and wrath, born of passion, the great evil, the sum of destruction. This is the enemy of the soul. All is clouded by desire, as fire by smoke, as a mirror by dust, as an unborn babe by its covering. Wisdom is clouded by desire, the ever-present enemy of the wise, desire in its innumerable forms, which like a fire cannot find satisfaction. Desire has found a place in men's senses and mind and reason. Through these it blinds the soul, after having overclouded wisdom. Set thou, therefore, thy senses in harmony, and then slay thou sinful desire, the destroyer of vision and wisdom. They say that the power of these senses is great, but greater than the senses is the mind. Greater than the mind is buddhi, wisdom, and greater than reason is he, the spirit in man and in all. Know him, therefore, who is above reason, and let his peace give thee peace. Be a warrior and kill desire, the powerful enemy of the soul. All right, I'm going to wrap it up right there. Thanks, everybody, for coming and listening. I might read more of this later. Cheers.